I was having a heck of a time logging in tonight. I don't know why. Kept kicking me out. Not liking me.
I think it might be something with Zoom, Eric, because the utility committee, it froze up there too. I'm not sure if that was Zoom or something else, but
Yeah, the utility committee meeting was on go-to meetings or something, and it totally froze me. I had to get out and get back in.
Yeah, and the pictures kept going blurry and it was weird. All right, it's 5:59. I think I'm gonna let people in the waiting room.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, and we are live streaming on YouTube.
hi Liz, good to see you.
Great to see you as well.
I don't see Marcus. I don't see Marcus on yet. We have everybody else. Oh, Barb is saying that she just got kicked out of Zoom as well. So I promise I'm not kicking anybody out.
Yeah, Kelly?
I didn't. I mean, I would say, wasn't that funny? But I really didn't. And Eric just said the same thing. Weird.
Hey, well, it is 6 o'clock, so let us get started with the meeting. So I'll call the meeting to order, and just for everyone's knowledge, this is a city council meeting. It's a regular meeting, and it is due to COVID via Zoom tonight. It is being recorded, and tonight is Tuesday, January 26, 2021, and it is 6 p.m. So with that, I would ask everyone to go ahead and stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
Nation
for which it
under
stands,
God,
one
indivisible,
nation, under God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, perfect. So with that, let's get a roll call.
Okay, I'm just letting Marcus in.
Okay.
All right. Councilmember Daughtry,
present,
Councilmember Peter Shagan,
Present.
Councilmember Frederick,
Here.
Councilmember Dickinson,
Here,
Councilmember Jorstad,
Present.
Councilmember Ewing,
here.
Councilmember Tagent. I see him. Well, I see a black screen, but he's on. Marcus or Councilmember Tagent, can you hear me? Let me just see if he's muted. Councilmember Tagent, can you hear me? Can you all hear me?
yes.
Okay, good. Okay. I see him. I'm just not sure if he's got audio.
Okay, he's here, so we'll count him.
Okay. And he's not muted that I can tell, so. Try one more time. Councilmember Tagent, Marcus, can you hear me?
Looks like he just dropped off. Oh, there he is.
It's swapping around. Okay, let's move on.
Okay.
So Council President Daughtry, can I get approval of the agenda?
Okay, council members, you have an agenda before you. Is there any changes that you wish to make to the agenda tonight? Seeing none, could I get a vote for the agenda? I mean, a movement for the agenda.
I move to accept.
Second it.
Okay, it's been moved by Mary and seconded by Sean. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passed unanimously. Mr. Mayor, you have an agenda.
Excellent. And so with that, we'll move into citizens' comments. And how we do citizens' comments on Zoom is we will open the floor for citizens' comments, allowing for 3 minutes of a citizen to give comments. What we look for is a hand raised or a first name said, and I'll call upon you, at which time you would say your name and address, and we will recognize you for 3 minutes. Liz, give me 1 second. I see your hand. And with that, Ms. Challen, is there anybody in the waiting room?
There is not. No.
Nobody is in the waiting room. Ms. Brown, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor Gailey, Mr. Brazel, and City Council members. My name is Liz Brown. I live in Edmonds, Washington, and I am a proud member of and business agent for Teamsters Local 763. Our union represents the Public Works field employees here at Lake Stevens. In the council's recent workshop, you discussed discontinuing hazard pay for our members. I urge you to reconsider ending the hazard pay, which is $10 per day per employee. Our members have continued to work on site every day since the COVID pandemic began. While City Hall is closed and most of the city's white-collar employees work safely from home, our blue-collar members routinely interact with contractors and the public as they tend parks, streets, and other city infrastructure. If anything, masked and unmasked people approach our members more frequently because they are the most visible and accessible city employees, along with the police. They are targets for residents unhappy with mask mandates and closures. As new, more contagious variants of COVID spread in the community, discontinuing hazard pay for our members sends the message that while their work is essential, they are more expendable than city employees working from home. Please continue the hazard pay for our members in recognition of the risks they run in service to the residents of Lake Stevens. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. I appreciate the words. Is there anybody else who would like to have citizens' comments tonight? Looking for a raised hand or a first name.
Mayor, I have one more person I'm admitting right now.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Last call for citizens' comments. Is there anybody else out there who would like to make comments tonight? Okay. With that, is there anybody else in the waiting room, Ms. John?
There is not.
Okay, so with that, we'll go ahead and close the citizens' comments and we'll go to council business. President Daughtry.
Okay, let's go ahead and start with what's on my screen. Councilmember Dickinson.
I want to say thank you for regarding the retreat this weekend and that we're going to be meeting via Zoom. I appreciate that change. And I also want you to know that I was able to get vaccination today. And it is a pain in the neck, but don't give up if you're looking for one. They are out there. I hope they'll be easier to get. And the health district meetings show that they're doing their due diligence to keep the vaccines coming. There is an extra position open in the library board. So I do hope we will put the word out that they are looking for one more member to the library board. After 36 hours without power at our house, I want to personally thank the PUD for the hard work they put forth so that we could see light again.
Okay, thank you. I was not aware that they gave that in the neck. Wow. Gary Petersagan.
Thank you, Councilmember Daughtry. I just want to give a shout out to the mayor and public works staff, Eric Durpos in particular, regarding this issue of the outfall and the lake level and so forth. Having been one that has had to acquire environmental permits, not for outflows, but for other issues, it's a difficult process. And when the mayor first kind of approached me with the idea, I was a naysayer and said, good luck, not going to happen. So to my surprise, progress was made. And I just want to say hats off to the mayor for being dogged and optimistic and kind of a can-do attitude, and to the staff and Eric for getting it done. I mean, it's a dramatic improvement to the lake level here in the last few days. And I just want to say thank you. I think it's we've got a mayor and a staff with can-do attitude that says let's give it a try. So that's good for the city. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Councilmember Frederick.
I'm sure everyone is aware by now that the UK variant is here in Snohomish County, leading from the front like we do in the county. We like to be first in everything. I know that there's concern out there, but really it doesn't change anything as far as what the expectations are. Wear a mask, watch your distance, wash your hands, follow the 3 W's, and that's enough to get us through until we get enough vaccine into the county to make sure everyone's taken care of. There's a lot of people, be it county, fire, EMS, both public and private partners, obviously the health district, all working in concert to make sure that there's plenty of capacity once we get the supply of vaccine so that you'll be able to easily get one once that vaccine starts to flow. So be patient. We know that there's a lot of anxiety out there. We're close. We can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and we're pretty sure it's not a train this time. So we're getting there. That's what I have.
Thank you, Councilmember Frederick. Next would be Councilmember Ewing.
I just want to kind of piggyback on what Gary said, compliment the mayor and Eric and Shannon and those involved with working with the outflow. I checked that out and was impressed with the work that was done. I connected with Shannon this week and had a conversation with her, very impressed with her can-do attitude and the work that she's doing to help us get the permits. And frankly, I thought was not going to be possible given prior experience in getting permits like that. And so like to thank them. Also being on the interview panel, I just want to thank our city clerk, Kelly, for the outstanding job she's been doing setting up interviews and connecting with people. She's done this over several months, connecting with dozens of our citizens to get them interviews on our boards and commissions. So thank you, Kelly, for your efforts there. And and Kim and I have been on the interview panels, and recent meeting of the salary board, is reflective of the quality citizens that we have that are on those boards. Commissioner or Chairperson Hampton, did a great job of leading the meeting, and the 4 new members of the commission just had a really robust discussion, as they should have. And so I just want to thank them for that. And also want to thank Liz Brown, if she's still on the call, for her thoughtful comments regarding our public works employees. Appreciate her concern. And I'm also concerned for the well-being of our staff that are in contact with the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Ewing. And next is Councilmember Jorstad.
Good evening. Speaking of can-do attitudes, we had our first health district board meeting of the year last week, and it's pretty impressive given all of the obstacles that are kind of thrown in the way of the health district staff, how incredibly optimistic and encouraged they convey and they sound talking about our path in our county towards moving through the phases and getting vaccinated. And I think, Councilman Frederick, echoed that as he was speaking, but I feel really fortunate to live in the county that we live in. I think that, everyone knows we have a vaccine shortage, not just here in our county, but nationwide. And I think that, we're doing the best we can. I have colleagues and employees who have gotten vaccinated, and the process seems to be just incredibly smooth and well coordinated. And I have no doubt that once we get the supply we need, we're going to move through this fairly quickly. So kudos to the health district. I feel really fortunate to be a part of that process and a part of that board. Had a conversation today with Rachel Alger. She is the new Snohomish County liaison for Representative Susan Delbene. She just called to set up a meeting to introduce herself, and I'll pass along her contact information to the council and mayor. She wants to make sure that we all know that Representative Delbene is open to feedback and wants to help represent our needs at the federal level. And so it was great to have a chance to meet her. As a social worker, she's a fellow social worker, so that was pretty exciting to see. And then tomorrow we have our quarterly Alliance for Housing Affordability meeting, so I will make sure and let folks know what happens there. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Jorstad and Councilmember Tagent.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I was having technical difficulties a little earlier during the roll call there, so got that figured out. Sewer District Utility Committee today with Councilmember Gary Petershagen and the mayor. Worked our way through a bunch of stuff. Looks like we have challenges in front of us, but we're really, really hopeful that the assumption goes well and that we can work together and not spend a lot of tax dollars on lawsuits and attorneys, when really this is a great opportunity for two entities to merge and save money, according to some studies that we had done, which we're all aware of. So that was good. And then I was able to, I'll just kind of go along with what Councilmember Petershagen said today, walk that outflow with Department of Fish and Wildlife this morning. Eric, phenomenal job, his whole crew, and Shannon, once again, great job. It looks like there was some inlets and outlets that people didn't even realize that were even there, and got those all cleaned out, which was really, really great. It's the water clarity was really clear. It was surprisingly, and I don't know, maybe someone can start doing inner tube floats down that now with all the water that's moving along there. So it was really great to see, and it looked like the flow is picked up, and I think a lot of people on the lake are happy to see that that's doing so well. And looks like we have a little work still to do. And from talking with Shannon and Department of Fish and Wildlife today, it looks like this might be a permit that we can have annually to maintain that and not let it get 60 years down the road. So that would be a real win. So great stuff happening in the city, and Mayor, great job on getting that permit along with Shannon and that whole team. So really a big win. I think a lot of people are excited to see that get cleaned up a little bit, and the habitat along there was well taken care of. And I think that made Department of Fish and Wildlife seemed very happy about it. So that's good.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Tagent. For myself, don't have too much. I'd like to, I ditto everything that's been said about the outfall. Great work by the team. Another team that's been doing an outstanding job for the last 2 weeks is Troy and the IT team, trying to get the mill to work the way we want it to work for our council meetings when we finally get to go there. One of the challenges was getting all the mics to work and things like that. They've been putting in a lot of hours in there to try to get that going, and I thank them for that. We had another little dry run this morning during the executive meeting, and it went better than it did last week. As you all know, we are now going to not have a in-person meeting at the mill for our retreat on Friday and Saturday. It's all going to be done during Zoom. That decision was made by the mayor this morning, and I think that's all I have. Oh no, one more thing. There is a second packet of the council procedures that was sent out. It's the most recent council procedures. Tried to get that out ahead of the agenda for Friday and Saturday and the rest of the packet, so that you had a little bit of time to go through. There is nothing on the agenda towards the procedures that has been identified to be talked about. And that's why we sent it out, is for you to read it, see if there's anything you want to discuss for changes or not. It might be a really quick discussion, and it might be a long one. Just depends on what people think of the procedures we have in place. Most of those have been in place for a long time. So that's why we sent it out early. Thank you very much to Kelly for doing that. And we'll see you on Friday with that. With that, I'll turn it back over to the mayor.
All right, gotta find that mute button. Okay, so with that, I've just got a couple of topics. The first one I want to address is in your packet, there is a draft letter in support of Sherwood Community Services to help them in a capital appropriation ask that they have for this legislative session. I would like to give a few minutes to Lance Morehouse just to talk about that appropriation that you're looking for.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor and City Council. I would have spoke up in citizens' comments with this input, but it would have been prior to the agenda item. So, those of you who know Sherwood, we've been in Lake Stevens, and our buildings were built. The initial building were built in 1975. And when those buildings were built, they were built when people with disabilities actually came to our location for services. So if you've ever been to our complex, you'll notice our large building looks like a school building because that's what it was built for. Children with disabilities who were not served in public schools, the original intent of Sherwood is to prove that children with intellectual and developmental disabilities can learn. So we have grown pretty tremendously in the past 5 years, the number of people that we serve and our staff. We're up to 60 employees now. And the current buildings that we have do not meet our needs. So I've been working with the board for about 2 years for a plan to address our space needs. And we now have developed a master plan for our property. We own about 3 acres at our current location, and about half of that is vacant land. We had a preliminary conversation with the city probably about a year ago around the possibility of developing that land, which was a preliminary, didn't see any barriers for us to be able to develop that. And I'm sure as this plan develops, we will come back to the city for further meetings to let them know of our progress. But the board in December has adopted a master plan for our property. And phase 1 of that would add some additional parking, put in some infrastructure for a future 8,500 square foot 2-story building that we would build on the backside of our property, and establish a couple of open air gazebos that can be used for actual service delivery in this time of COVID when we think about options and flexibility. We could use it for meetings and not have to be indoors, and even early intervention and vocational meetings and services could be provided in an open air setting. So that's phase 1 of our proposal that I approached the city for support for, and I thank you very much for your consideration.
Hey, Lance, thank you for that update on it. And I walked the grounds today with Lance and just kind of got a good picture of what he's trying to accomplish there. I would ask that we put this letter or give this letter to Sherwood so they can add it into their ask packet. And what I would ask is the council provide a vote of support for the letter, and maybe have President Daughtry's signature next to mine for the letter.
Are you looking for a motion right now?
That'd be great.
I move to approve the letter backing Sherwood's ask for help with their phased approach to their new buildings, and would welcome the chance to sign the letter along with Mayor Gailey.
Second.
Okay, looks like we have a motion on the floor to support the letter. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, Lance, we'll get you that letter and you can include in the packet. It's a good partnership. Sherwood has always been a great partner with our community and doing great things. appreciate your work, Lance. I just have a couple other items. I'm going to talk about the outflow just a little bit. I agree wholeheartedly. The staff has done a great job on getting that outflow debris cleared out. It's been fun actually to watch Trevor do that work with that excavator. We walked it today with Fish and Wildlife, and some good positives of that walk was they full-heartedly have supported what we've done in the debris clear. The other thing that we did is, as Councilmember Tatch, I think, said, we've noticed other issues, that other blockages now that the water has come down. We've noticed other beaver dams, those sorts of things. And so we'll be applying for additional permits to get in and clear some of those other obstructions out that will really start to get the water out of downtown behind Jay's and that sort of thing. That's what those dams are blocking, those areas. So just some additional permits, and great work by Shannon and Eric and John on the staff on making that happen. Costco. So today, I think most of you saw an email that the appeal process was denied by the judge. So that is done, unless Greg wants to tell me differently. We are out of the rough waves of appeal processes. Let's just say that in the Costco project. As far as the roundabout, the governor did pause the South Lake Stevens Highway 9 roundabout project. That is something I've been working on daily. I testified last week in the House Transportation Committee. I'll be testifying tomorrow in the Senate Transportation Committee, where as well we put together a mayor's letter, and along with Executive Dave Summers, a letter to not only legislative members, but to the governor as well, asking them to unpause that project so that we can continue on with the planning of Costco. And we find that that project falls under the fish barrier clause within that pause, that it needs to be continued. And Ms. Brown, just so that you know, we will be taking up the hazard pay issue during the retreat this week, Friday, Saturday. That is all I have for mayor's business. So with that, can I get, and I don't have any directors or staff who have anything to report. So with that, let's move to the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve this consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to pass the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent. Thank you. And thank you, staff, for all the work on that consent agenda. And, you know, the people don't realize we do a lot of pre-work and pre-workshop sort of discussions for the consent agenda items that gets council smart on those items before we pass them. Let's move into a public hearing. And this public hearing is reference ordinance 1109, building and fire code amendments. Ryan, I think you have a staff report.
Yes.
You're muted, Ryan.
Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. Yes, hello, Mr. Mayor and council members. Appreciate the opportunity to speak to you once again about the building and fire code adoption. An update on the state's actions since we last spoke in the work session. Governor Inslee did veto the delay from the State Building Code Council. They had voted to delay the implementation until July 1st. Again, Governor Inslee vetoed that, so the codes now take effect on February 1st, and state law mandates that the city adopts those prior to that effective date. So we're here again to talk about approving that ordinance to adopt those codes. But first, in response to council's concerns that were raised at the last work session regarding restrictions on accessory buildings and permits for constructing docks. Staff's recommending that we repeal those sections in the building code, as we feel those items are more appropriately addressed in existing land use provisions of municipal code under Title 1440 and I believe 1492. So with that, recommending approval of the ordinance to adopt the International Code Group, the 2018 Code Group, including our local amendments to Lake Stevens Municipal Code.
So with that, we'll open the floor for any council's questions of staff. Hearing no questions from any council member. Okay.
Just quickly, if I may. Ryan, could you give me an explanation as to why the city of Seattle was allowed to go to March 15th for their implementation?
I don't. I did see that, and I was curious why as well. I do know that the city of Seattle has basically a standalone code that is more restrictive than the state code, and I think they've got a much more in-depth process for adoption of their building codes. But unfortunately, I couldn't answer why that was allowed.
I'm just curious. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Mayor, I did want to point out that the fire marshal is here tonight as well, if he wanted to address any of the local changes to the fire code for the council's benefit.
Okay, so if we consider him staff, are there any questions for Fire Marshal Messer? Someone's got to ping the firefighter. Come on.
Sorry.
I could.
I'm not hearing any questions for the firefighter or for Ryan.
Tyler would pop in on that one. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, so with that, I'll go ahead and open. This is a public hearing, so I'm going to go ahead and open for public comments from the audience. Reference ordinance 1109 building and fire code amendments. Are there any comments from public comments on this issue? Looking for a hand raised or first name. Second call for public comments on this issue. Ms. Chillen, is there anybody in the waiting room?
There is not.
Okay. Seeing none. What was that?
Oh, I see no hands.
Okay. So seeing none and hearing none, I'll go ahead and close the public comments portion of this hearing. Is there any further comment by staff?
I don't have anything else to add if there's no further questions.
Mr. Mayor, I have one other question. And this is directed to either Ryan or Russ. I'm just wondering, because this is such a short notification, I mean, just a matter of days. I think Governor Inslee issued this on, Thursday last week? How, if somebody is making an application for a building permit prior to February 1st, are they vested, or how are you going to implement this for people that are scrambling, trying to comply with existing regulations?
Our intent tomorrow is to publish on the website the outcome of this meeting to give people advance notice, and any applications that come in complete prior to that time do vest to the current code standards.
Great, thank you.
Okay, do we have any further comments or further questions for the council, for the staff? Okay, so with that, is there any discussion or deliberation within the council reference this public hearing?
Just only thing I want to mention is the master builders did have comment time for this and were favorable with moving this forward, correct?
I provided our draft chapters to them. I had not heard any response. I did get a response from the Snohomish County representative that said they received it and would review it and attend the meeting and comment if necessary. But other than that, I haven't heard anything from them.
Marcus, if I may, I think the governor's veto of this caught everybody off guard.
Yeah.
And, thank you, Governor, being in the building industry, but I don't believe they're prepared to comment on such short notice. So.
Okay, any other comments on this? All right, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. And at this time, what's the desired action by the council? We can approve the ordinance, we can deny the ordinance, or we can do a continuation of the ordinance.
Mr. Mayor, I would move to approve the first and final hearing on the building construction and fire code amendments and adopt ordinance 1109.
Second.
All right, so I have a motion to approve ordinance 1109 building and fire code amendments. And I have a second. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 And any opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so let's go ahead and roll call that, Kelly.
Councilmember Daughtry.
Aye.
Councilmember Peter Shagan.
Nay.
Councilmember, that was a nay.
Nay, yes.
Okay. Councilmember Frederick.
Aye.
Councilmember Dickinson.
Aye.
Councilmember Jorstad.
Aye.
Councilmember Ewing.
Aye.
Councilmember Tagent.
Nay.
It passes 5-2.
5-2 pass. Okay. So with that, we'll move on to discussion item H, which is Transportation Benefit District. Barb, you are up.
Thank you very much, Council and Mayor. I'm having some technical difficulties with my internet service, so I might have to take myself off the screen again, but I would like to share my screen. I have a presentation that I've updated for Council and Mayor, if possible.
Mayor, you may need to give her permission to do that.
All right, let's see what we got here. You got it?
Yep.
I think I might have it. I think I just took it. Okay, so this was actually slated to be on the council retreat agenda along with some other items. For the sake of time, since we had some time, it looked like on this meeting, we decided to bring it forward a little earlier. So we will just be looking at the Transportation Benefit District funding and discuss that a little. As a point of reminder, the city did create a Transportation Benefit District in 2018. We did go through the process of assuming the district by the city. So we absorbed it into the city in the first meeting in 2019. And then we did adopt the material change policy that just says, once we come up with our plan, if anything is outside the parameters of that resolution, we will come back to council and make changes to that. I know a number of you were not here when we established the TBD and went through this process, so I did attach those ordinances and resolutions to the packet. There's no action for those. Those are already passed and been codified by the city, but I did want you to have access to those in case you didn't prior. The only thing that we have not done is funded the Transportation Benefit District. So we've done no funding of the district yet. And it is still called the Transportation Benefit District, even though it's part of the city now. So just terminology. So some of the things that we actually talked about, what do you do with the Transportation Benefit District funding? you can do a number of things. You can do projects. And so we kind of broke those up. Would we do smaller projects individually with just that money? Would we do larger projects where we actually need to bring additional funding in, whether it's a bond or other capital funding? And then the other one is maintenance. When we looked at this in February of this year, I believe Director Durpo had mentioned we were about $1.6 million underfunded in the maintenance of streets. And so maintenance is a big one where we need more funding. So there is a significant backlog. Some of the things that would be able to occur with this funding includes overlays, crack sealing, shoulder work, and signage. And there was a PDF that I included from the Public Works Department that showed some overlays that I can show at the end, yet I know, according to Director Durpo, there is some additional funding in your 2021 budget where they're going to go out and they're going to do a survey of all of the roadways. So you'll get a better understanding of the overlays. I'll let Eric talk about that at the end if he wants. So looking at transportation revenues, I know most of you have seen these. I did update the numbers for 2020. As a reminder, the only dedicated source of funding for the street fund for maintenance is the motor vehicle fuel tax. And in 2020, that came in at just over $665,000, which is about a 10% decrease over 2019. As I mentioned before, motor vehicle fuel tax, yes, it affects us directly. It also affects our granting agencies and when our grants are coming in. So that's a big one. The general fund does contribute to the street in a couple of ways. One is the property tax, and the street fund gets 28% of all property tax that comes in, and that's about 1.4 million in 2020. And then the other is garbage utility tax. So that's another general fund type funding source that we've actually directed to the street fund due to the nexus between the trucks rolling over the street, and there's actually a direct need there. The other ones I have in here, REIT 2, real estate excise tax 1 and real estate excise tax 2 and traffic mitigation. Those are all for capital projects. None of those can be used for maintenance. There is some REIT that can be used due to some legislation a couple of years ago that we can use some for maintenance. But unfortunately, we have so many capital projects going, you're kind of, borrowing from one to pay the other at this point. So I just listed some of the projects that we have been using real estate excise tax, traffic mitigation for, and then we have been lucky enough to, and I don't know if it's luck or just the work we put into it, to actually getting a number of grants. Some of these are delayed, some of these are coming in just fine. The one thing we want to come back to is the Transportation Benefit District funding options. And so that is, you have two options. One is the vehicle tab fee, so the registration fee, a $20 tab, and then the sales tax up to 0.2%. So I'll kind of go through those and what those look like. The registration fee, tab fees, those are non-voted by citizens. That's a resolution by council. You can do $20 per year for the vehicles registered within the city of Lake Stevens. So those in unincorporated Snohomish County, they don't pay into this, it's just those within the city of Lake Stevens. There are options to increase that dollar amount, but there's statutory limits. You have to wait a certain number of months before you can do that and keep moving forward. These are collected by the Department of Licensing, and we will do an interlocal agreement for the collection, and then there's a small administrative fee. And the collection begins 6 months after the resolution is passed. So if this was passed in February, we wouldn't start collection until about August. So we would receive, a quarter of the money that we would normally receive, or a third of the money. So looking at your sales and use tax overview here, it is subject to a simple majority vote through the county election process. It's about 2 cents on every $10 spent. And this would be for all those spending money, purchasing taxable goods within the city of Lake Stevens. So those coming in from Marysville and those coming from Snohomish and those coming from Snohomish County would pay into this as well. So This tax is good for up to 10 years, and then it would have to be re-voted by the citizens. There can be an extended period if we went out for a bond issue. That must be in your statement when you go out to the vote to say how much the bond is and how long it's for, and then they'd have to approve it that way. So this is collected by the Department of Revenue. I put some information in here that I pulled from their website and from MRSC that sales tax changes only take effect 3 times a year. It used to be 4, but now it's only in January, April, and July. So there's no more October sales tax dates, and it's no sooner than 75 days, calendar days after Department of Revenue receives the notice of change, which would be after the certification of the vote. We would then notify Department of Revenue, and then it's at least 75 days, and it can only be January, April, or July. So based on this, the collection would begin no sooner than January 1st, 2022. And we're looking at about 1.1 million, and that is just based on our current sales tax dollars. So looking at the comparison, as I mentioned, tab fees, that's pretty straightforward. The sales tax, because of the voter ballot timing, I kind of have those on here. So if we were to go to a special election in April, that measure would be due next month. And I don't know the exact date. We'd have to go back. Actually, I think I pulled it, but it would be in February. And then it would, both that one and your August one would, your April one would miss the July. So it would be January. August, again, January. November 2021 would be April of 2022. So there's an extreme lag of when you can actually implement the tax. But that does give people the opportunity to kind of get used to it, get the information out there. So those are kind of what we're looking at. And then also, as I mentioned in the past, special elections, if we don't have anything else on the ballot, it's about $70,000 a year for that election. If we did it in the August 21st, 2021 or the November 2021, the assumption is that there are likely going to be contested races in Lake Stevens with more than 2 officials going for each position. If there are, then it would be no more cost than we would already be paying for that election anyway. So basically there's no real additional cost in August or November, assuming contested races. So as we've talked about in the past, our next step would be public communication, education, determining our priorities for what we're going to be doing with the funding, and then council action to determine what is your preference, which way do we want to go forward. I know we talked about going out to vote last year, and there's a number of reasons we held off doing that. One of them was just, COVID, and everything was kind of unknown at the time, and we were extremely busy, and so getting that together last year didn't happen. But Eric, if you have anything you would like to add, this is the end of what I have for you at this point.
Sure. Thank you, Barb, for all your hard work on this. As we all know, our streets are in need of some pretty serious maintenance. The last pavement condition rating that we did, PCR, was back in 2016 was the report, but it was 2015 data. So we're 5 years into that. So if you recall, we added $100,000 to the budget this year, so Grace and I could hire a company to do a new survey of the streets. I think what you're going to see is several of them in very poor condition, and with that data we'd be able to come back and at least maybe tighten up that maintenance number on what it would take as far as what's being deferred and what needs to be done to get our city back on the right path. So we're hoping to get that done in March or April, and then be able to really come back to council, take a good hard look at every street in the city. That survey does include sidewalks, so that'll be helpful as well, and should be able to help council decide which way they want to go with the TBD. Right now we're lacking data, but that's a good way to get it. So
Okay, great staff report. What questions do we have from the council?
I have a question. Barb, I'm not really sure what the answer would be on this, and if you don't know, that's fine. We passed this in 2018, is that right? The TBD?
Yes.
Is there a sunset on that? Do we have to reenact it, or is it just something we've enacted and it's going to be there forever, whether we use it or not?
I will double check, but I think it's just going to be there unless we remove it from the code.
Okay,
and I'm getting a lot of nods, including Greg, so I think it just stays there.
I have a quick question. Thank you, Barb. This was really informative and helpful. Is the vehicle number of vehicles registered within the city limits? I'm assuming that is prior to any annexations. Do we have any sense of what that number might be after the planned annexations?
I don't know offhand. The 27,000, so the last solid number I got was the end of 2019, and it was 26,640, I think. And so we estimated at just a few hundred additional vehicles.
Okay.
So that was a solid number I got from Department of Licensing in 2019.
Okay, great. That's helpful to know where that number came from. Thank you.
Mary, go ahead.
I just want to say, I doorbelled, as you know, all over the city. So we don't get to do that now. You don't get to talk to the residents. But I got to tell you, this issue, and Kim Daughtry warned me that transportation was going to be thrown in my face every time I rang a doorbell. And it was. 1,521 different families talked to me about this issue. And I'm hoping that that is a plus for us, that we move forward and make this happen. People are desperate for safe streets, safe sidewalks. They really are, and yes, it costs money. The question is now, are they willing to help pay for it? That's what I have my finger crossed over. But I thought I was glad to see that on there.
I would chime in and say, I agree with you, Mary. It's are we willing to pay for it or not? But these same people are the users. And this is a tax that's directly helping the users. So I hope that they are, because it's important for us to safe sidewalks and streets. And, you know, as much as we've had a lot of infrastructure and houses come in, I don't take putting taxes on our constituents lightly, but this is one that really makes a lot of great sense. And if we do it right, it really benefits the people who are using it the most. So
I would agree with Marcus on that. However, I would say that it would be the best method for us to go would be the sales tax. It helps spread the word, spread the word out, or not word, spread the wealth of getting tax dollars from outside the city to those people that come to the city that are using our roads. So it's almost like a use tax. And so I would say, and at the same time, it goes out for vote. So the people get to speak about it. And we've talked about this in the past, where if we're going to go out for a vote to do this, then we need to have our ducks in a row and to be able to tell the people, here's where your money is going to go, specific projects or a specific timeline on maintenance and preservation, whatever that comes out to be, that needs to go along with it. Taxing people anymore without telling them exactly where the money is going to go is just not a non-starter. We need to be upfront and transparent, and then we need to be able to report to the people when those projects are in progress and completed if we go ahead and do this. I think, like Marcus does, that this is something we need to do. We've talked about it since 2017 when we started talking about it, and we put it on hold for good reasons, but I think it's time that we step up and do something about it.
I would, excuse me, I would second the thoughts of Councilmember Daughtry. I do think that the sales tax is the better avenue, simply because it puts the resolution of the issue in front of the voters in their hands versus the registration fee of us essentially enacting it. And I agree wholeheartedly. We need to have a list of items. This is what it's going to cost. This is when we're going to get them done. and so that we can have some certainty for the voters that improvements are going to happen. It's all too often that money gets allocated for something and it just doesn't seem to get done. So I would agree with Councilmember Daughtry's comments wholeheartedly.
Just chime in and echo what Councilmember Daughtry and Peter Shagan have shared. Having the voters speak in this matter is a great idea. And as a voter in the city, I would have difficulty supporting something if I couldn't see where the money is going, specific projects and timelines, shovel ready, so to speak, so people have an idea where it's going to go. So those are my thoughts on that. If we do it in either if there's a contested primary and for the August election or in the general election, that would limit the city's cost for that vote.
This is going to be a good test for a lot of the communication improvements that have been put in place for the city. Being transparent and effectively reaching out to our residents and making sure we're communicating both the costs and the benefits of moving forward in this direction are going to be key. And it's, I think to some extent, it'll be a bit of a referendum on whether or not we're moving forward in the right direction and how we communicate with our residents. So this will be, I agree that it's probably a good time for us to move forward in this direction, even though a lot of people are still dealing with the financial and economic impacts of COVID. But at the same time, as Mary so put it, she talked to over 1,000 families and every single one of them talked about transportation. And I know transportation in the most recent election was a central issue that came up over and over and over again in Lake Stevens. So looking forward to us moving forward with this process. And I know that if it passes, then all of those projects that we would certainly identify as part of that also have their own transparent processes. So residents, again, have the opportunity to have a voice in how we continue to move the city forward.
I thank you, Councilman Frederick. I want to agree with most of what I've heard. I too think that putting a vote in front of the people is what makes sense. I think we also need to acknowledge that we have many families in our community that are really struggling, and it is imperative that we take the time to communicate to our community why this is important and how this is going to be of benefit. But I think I'm looking forward to talking more at the retreat about timing. Given the financial struggles, not just in Lake Stevens, but in our county, in our state, in our nation currently, I think we just need to be really sensitive to the fact that for a lot of families, a small sales tax increase is kind of a big deal. And so how do we best time that, and how do we make sure, as Councilman Frederick said, that we are utilizing our communication opportunities and avenues to make sure that this is done with the utmost transparency.
Well, I agree with Councilmember Jorstad on the timing issue. I think that if we went to where it doesn't take place until January 2022, hopefully Sean will get the COVID thing taken care of, and we won't have that problem anymore. People could be able to get back to work, and that's what I'm looking forward to. However, that being said, if it looks like that this isn't going to happen and Sean's not going to get us out of it, then I would think that we would want to sit there and look at the timing issue as a little bit more important than it is right now, and make it go further down the pike, even though we really do need the money to do this. Putting another tax, especially a regressive tax, on the citizens that are struggling the most is not the thing that I want to do. I'm still, I weigh those two things, and it's just really, really hard right now thinking about that. So my thought process is looking towards the future, and when can we do this and do it properly? And the communication is going to be key. It really is. And then there's the other issue of looking at projects maybe looking at projects differently also, with maybe a different equity lens or whatever the new terms are that we need to be looking at. But when you look at the city overall, and I think that the new report is going to tell us what we really need to be focused on. I mean, data is data, and that's going to give us what we really need to be working at. So I'm looking forward to that report, Eric, and hopefully we can get that done in a timely manner so that we can help put that towards the communications we're going to do with our citizens.
I think that report is equally as important. And I agree, timing's everything. Maybe not this year, but maybe we look towards next. I think hearing some feedback from the community is going to be great input for us, and hopefully we get that feedback through our great communication like we talked about. But I'm looking forward to the community knowing this is on our mind and getting that out and getting their feedback, so that way we get a clearer picture of how to move forward.
So I'm hearing lots of good comments on this. I think the next step is I'll direct staff to put together, I think since it's a 10-year time frame for the financing, I think it'd be good to have a good 10-year plan, what would occur over those 10 years with that money. So we'll task the staff to put together a plan that would include projects and preservation, those sorts of things, and bring that back to council to review. And then at that point, I think we can make a good decision on when we would take it before the voters. All right, silence is consensus. So with that, let's move on to the next. Very good stuff. Thank you, Barb, and thank you, Eric. Good work on this. We're going to move to an executive session, and the topic is going to be collective bargaining. There is not going to be any action taken afterwards. I'm thinking we're going to need just maybe 10 minutes, 15. What do you think, Anya?
Yeah, let's start with 10.
All right, we'll go for 10 minutes. And for council members' remembrance, I will invite you into a breakout room. So again, executive session covering collective bargaining with no action to follow. Kelly, did you need to be in on this?
Nope, I'm gonna hang here with everybody else.
Okay.
So we are at 10 minutes, but the council has requested an additional 5 minutes. Thank you. Thank you for your patience. The council has requested 5 additional minutes. Thank you. council is extending again for an additional 5 minutes. Thanks for your patience. Mayor, I just requested an additional 5 minutes for your executive session. And that was just like 30 seconds ago, although nobody has dropped off of the meeting.
Okay, so since no one's dropped off and we don't have any other people who may have left thinking they were going to come back in 5 minutes, I think we're probably safe.
Okay, thanks.
Getting a north-south from Greg, so I'll take it.
Move to adjourn.
Let's make a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, great meeting. Good stuff, team. Things are going well. Have a great week. Actually, we'll see you Friday.
See you Friday.
Bye.